Ever imagine yourself leading a team, but like not in some stuffy boardroom? More like a jungle or a desert or maybe even someplace you wouldn't find on a map.
Ooh, I like where you're going with this.
Well, today's deep dive takes us straight into the boots of an Army major, and we're using RoleCatcher to figure out how to earn that title.
You know, it's funny. Most people, they hear military career and they just think combat. But RoleCatcher points out that Army majors, they work everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, training centers, those forward operating bases, even back home, like managing people, equipment, it's way more diverse.
Okay, so let's get specific then. What does an Army major do all day?
So RoleCatcher, they say it's about commanding these large units, yeah.
Yeah.
Overseeing all the training, the welfare, making sure they've got the gear, the resources to do the job.
Sounds like a lot on their plate.
It is, and it's not just barking orders, right?
Mm.
You've got to be thinking strategically about those resources, mentoring the officers coming up, even the paperwork, making sure everything runs smooth, leadership, big picture thinking, even sweating the small stuff. It takes the whole package.
It's like you're the coach of a team, but the stakes are way higher. You're responsible for how they perform, but like literally for their lives too. And RoleCatcher, they don't sugarcoat the tough parts either.
No, not at all.
They mention limited freedom, the stress is high, and obviously some of these work environments, that's got to be dangerous.
Right, and that's where those different locations really hit you.
Hmm.
Leading training in the desert heat, that's a whole different ball game than, say, managing logistics at some busy headquarters overseas.
So you need to be tough, but also adaptable. Like mentally, you've got to roll with the punches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not like you just wake up one day and bam, you're an Army major.
Right, there's a whole path, yeah.
Totally. RoleCatcher lays it out. You start entry-level officer, picture someone fresh out of college, maybe a military science degree, some basic certifications, first aid, that kind of thing.
So they're green.
They are. Assisting the senior officers, doing the training, getting their hands dirty, building that base.
Learning the ropes, kind of like an assistant coach.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Then you move up junior Army officer. Now we're talking making calls under pressure.
Leading a platoon. Right, I remember that.
Yep. RoleCatcher actually gives an example of someone who excels in that kind of chaos,
Right.
making split-second decisions, but always putting their soldiers first. This is usually when they start adding more specific certifications, too.
Like what kind of certifications are we talking?
Oh, combat leadership, land navigation, stuff like that shows they're serious about moving up.
So it's not enough to just lead. You've got to be able to handle the pressure cooker and think strategically even when things are going crazy.
100%. That ability to stay frosty, make the tough call, it's crucial for the next step, becoming Army captain.
Okay, so now we're talking running a whole company. That's a big jump.
It is. And they're not just focused on tactics anymore. It's strategy, resource management, mentoring those junior officers under them.
Whoa, so now they're basically running a whole athletic program from assistant coach to the big leagues. And all the while, they're getting better at leadership, decision making, staying calm under pressure, all those essential skills, right?
Right. They keep building on what they've learned, taking on more responsibility.
Which I guess leads us to the main event, the Army major.
And it's funny you say main event, because even though being an Army major is the goal, the journey, those early stages, that's what really shapes them as leaders.
So it's not the destination, it's the journey. That's kind of deep, actually.
You got it.
But let's be real, being an Army major, it's not just inspiring speeches and battle plans, right? RoleCatcher has this whole list of skills, and some of them are surprising. They've got leadership, management, communication, all the stuff you'd expect. But then, bam! Organizational and administrative skills. Like, even when you're calling the shots in some huge operation, someone's got to wrangle those spreadsheets.
It's about balance, You need the big picture thinking, but also that attention to detail, making sure everything actually happens.
Because otherwise it all falls apart.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget, these Army majors, they're dealing with intense situations, making those critical decisions, often with, hardly any information to go on.
Speaking of intense, you mentioned limited personal freedom earlier. What exactly does that look like day to day?
Well, think about it. Deployments popping up, unpredictable schedules, always being on call.
So not your average 9 to 5.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Finding that work-life balance, it's tough. Strong support networks are key. Your fellow soldiers, family back home, that kind of thing.
It's really a whole lifestyle, isn't it? Not just a job.
Totally.
So let's say someone's listening to this and they're thinking, hey, this Army major thing, maybe that's me. How can RoleCatcher help them figure that out?
Oh, that's where RoleCatcher really shines. They've got this career compass feature, right? It helps you map out those different career paths, skills you'd need, even potential salary stuff. So if you're curious about becoming an Army major, you can see what experience or certifications would give you a leg up.
Like a roadmap, but for your career, not a road trip.
Exactly. And speaking of certifications, RoleCatcher has this whole interview prep section too.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Is it, like, specific to the military?
Tons of resources for military roles, including, yep, Army Major,
Oh.
over 120,000 interview questions tailored to different careers. They even have this AI thing called Beat the Automated Recruiter, which honestly sounds kind of intimidating, right?
Beat the automated recruiter. Okay, now you have to explain the amount of straight out a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? But it's actually super practical. You know how companies are using all that software now to scan resumes? Like filtering out candidates before a human even looks at them.
Yeah, those applicant tracking systems. The bane of my existence.
Exactly. So RoleCatcher's AI, it analyzes job descriptions and helps you tweak your resume, make your cover letter pop, highlighting the exact skills and keywords those systems are looking for.
So it's like having a secret weapon to get past the robots and actually be seen by a human.
Think of it that way, yeah. But it's not just about gaming the system either. RoleCatcher will even point out skills you might be missing, suggest courses or certifications that could help.
So it's like having a personal career coach, but like without the awkward motivational speeches. So even if becoming an Army major isn't your end game, RoleCatcher can be super helpful for navigating the job market in general.
100%. But circling back to the Army Major track for a sec, remember that whole pros and cons list we talked about before? I think it's a good gut check for anyone considering this kind of role, to see if it aligns with what they're looking for.
Okay, so on the con side, we've got those tough environments, the potential danger, limited freedom.
Right, it's demanding.
But then the pros, leadership opportunities, good pay and benefits, and of course, serving your country, which is huge.
Plus, RoleCatcher specifically mentions opportunities for travel and adventure, which, let's be real, that's a big plus for some people.
It's definitely not your average desk job. But honestly, what really gets me is this role, it attracts a certain type of person, doesn't it?
No doubt. It's not just about being physically tough or a master strategist.
It's like to be an Army major, you've got to have serious character, you know? Stay calm when everything's hitting the fan, make the hard calls, inspire the people around you, even when things look bleak.
It's a tall order.
It is. And like, most of us, we're never going to face those battlefield decisions, but those same qualities, the resilience, the leadership, that's gold in any field, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. That's what I love about digging into these different careers. Even if you're not, like signing up tomorrow, you learn so much about what makes these roles tick, the skills, the impact. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Like, who knew we'd learn so much about leadership from Army majors, right?
Yeah.
Or even how to deal with those applicant tracking systems. Those things are brutal.
It's all connected, though. You start to see how those skills, they transfer, open up new possibilities. And RoleCatcher, it helps you put those puzzle pieces together.
So whether you're thinking about a military career or just want to level up, it sounds like RoleCatcher is a good tool to have in your back pocket.
Oh, sure.
Now, before we wrap up, one last thing. Remember how RoleCatcher mentioned Army majors making tough decisions? With, like, barely any information sometimes?
Yeah.
It got me thinking, listeners, what's a tough decision you've faced? And looking back, how could those skills we've been talking about, thinking strategically, staying flexible, having courage, how could those have helped you in that moment?
That's a great question to think about. Because even though most of us will never wear that uniform, we all face our own challenges, our own moments that test us. So maybe if we understand what it takes to lead when the pressure's really on, we can find that same strength, that wisdom to lead in our own lives,
Now, that is something to think about. So until next time, keep exploring those possibilities, keep learning, and keep pushing yourselves to grow in your careers and in everything you do.